to?
Since last time we spoke, I retired completely. I'm no longer in employment.
Good.
That's quite good.
Oh. My wife's dad just retired. He owned a cabinet shop in Norfolk. Right. And, he ran it for 30 years. In fact, that's why I missed this. I think I missed one Saturday. I had to help with their auction. So, but yeah, he's fully retired and he's at home. So I'm sure it's an adjustment. I mean, you did it for 30 years. I don't know. If I end up working from home for the next 20 years, it's not going to feel like I retire when I finally do. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not getting up and going to work some other place, and I haven't had to do that for 2 years now. So it's kind of weird where we're evolving.
That, in effect, is what caused me to retire. You know, I'm doing nothing.
Right.
And I was employed by Her Majesty. Get a reasonable pension, so I thought, why not?
Right. Morning, Brother Jody. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. I'm at work right now, but I'm just listening in.
All right. Like the hat.
Oh, thank you.
Here we go.
Oh,
Nationals.
Awesome. That's it.
Happen to pick that shirt. All right. Well, good. Where do you hail from?
Eventually 251.
What city?
Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay. See, we're both wearing gear from a Washington, D.C. team, and I'm in Virginia. He's in North Carolina. Fans everywhere. Well, it's funny about Virginia. We do not have a single professional sports team, not one. Mm-hmm. And most people, when I was stationed here, I'd said, well, you know, what football team y'all follow? Oh, we follow the Redskins. Like, the Redskins? Kind of by default, that's the closest team. So, and I know North Carolina now has at least a football team. But it's so funny, Virginia, we don't have not a professional baseball, football, basketball, nothing. No pro teams. It's kind of weird.
Listen, you know what? Now thinking about it, I've never thought about that. Because when I think about Virginia Tech. That's about it.
Well, yeah, that's all college though. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
It's funny. Okay. Let's see.
Just trying to rustle up some support here.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, let me go to Brian, make you the co-host.
Thank you.
All that hard work. Whew. Yeah.
Aye.
All that administrative task. Yes, I'm good.
Exactly. All four of us.
Yeah. So I think Wes should be on in a few minutes. Wes is a member of my lodge. He actually affiliated with Ocean View. He belongs to, I think, Norfolk #1. We get a lot of guys who affiliate with us, which is nice. And he's also in the Scottish Rite. I've known him longer from the Scottish Rite, but he's prepared this paper on the funeral dirge. And I actually mentioned in lodge last night, it's like, well, you know that song we were all singing so well? We have a presentation tomorrow on the origins of that. So I've been looking forward to this. I've always wondered about that song, where it came from and what all. There he is.
And here he is.
Yay. Morning, Wes.
I'm gonna mute out because I'm at work and my radio's probably gonna start going off.
Okay, Jody. Nice to have you with us. Morning, Wes. You're on mute.
That's because, surprisingly, I have nothing to say.
Oh, that is a surprise. Well, you can show your smiling face when you're ready.
It's going to be a hell of a short lecture then.
That's right. Well, there was Carson who would not show his face. He was the presenter, and it's like,
yeah, it's a bit weird.
You don't want to at least show your face once, and then there he is. I was telling them, Wes, last night at Ocean View, we had 2 Master Masons being raised. And at the end, I got up and spoke. I said, well, you know that cute little ditty we were all singing? It just so happens that one of our members has a nice talk about where that song comes from, and you can all tune in tomorrow. So we shall see.
Yeah, a nice ditty. Well,
A nice
put.
And people ask, like, well, does he have a talk about ode number 5? I said, no, that's probably a follow-up you'll have to do. So Brian and John, you all do you sing the Solemn Strikes the Funeral Chime when you do the second section?
The what?
When you do the second section of the Masters, I don't know what y'all do. Where you proceed around the lodge, do you sing?
No.
Okay, well, we do. Do you proceed around the lodge, like heading to the grave?
Sort of ish, but it sounds like you do things incredibly different from what we do.
I'm sure it
Bear
is.
in mind, I haven't done it for 15 months now.
Oh, okay, well, it comes back to you. Well, it basically, when the body is found, King Solomon has Hiram of Tyre gather all of the men, and they all march to the grave. And all the way, you don't do that.
No, we do it as a story. So they stand on the racing board, and it's done basically as a story.
Oh, okay. Well, we actually act it all out. So we have ruffians, we have fellow craftsmen, but there's a song that we sing as we march around, heading towards the grave, and that's what today's presentation's on. So
Yeah. Hey, Chris, can you give me either co-host or share permissions so that we can hopefully make this work?
Yeah. Let me.
We have a rush on here.
We're good. Go and get them, Brian. I'll figure this out. Sharing. Let's see. I think I have to I'll make it all participants. Nobody else is going to try and share, I don't think so. I should work. I did wanted to, there's Brother Day and Brother Elias. Good to have you here. I was going to show a quick picture while you're getting your stuff together there. Let's see. Where are you at? Go to, oh, did I close it out? I think I closed it out. I wanted to share just a picture here real quick. Ocean view. And come back. And there. So this is Ocean View. These are all the people who were in attendance last night. We had about 20 people, I think, total. 21, 22 people counting me. I took the picture. And over half of them were visitors. So we had brothers from Norfolk, South Norfolk, Suffolk, and one brother from Detroit who was visiting one of the other brothers who was in town, and that was neat. And then this is our man cave, where we have, we set out one corner of the dining hall. We put up couches and love seats, whatever. And we kind of gather there after the meeting, smoke cigars, and sit around and talk for hours afterwards. So these are all the fellows. It's another angle. And the fellow in the kilt you see standing there, that is Sam Welty. He's the worshipful master. And he made that mural you see behind him, the big tree. He also did the murals you see behind me up in the lodge room. Actually, I can show a better picture. You can see the background. This part's unfinished for some reason, but he drew the temple on both the east and west walls. So quite a talented artist, Sam is. And he paints murals for a living and like, you know, large buildings and what all, on big hotel walls and whatever. It's pretty neat. So he donates his talents.
The big question is, how long did it take for the committee to agree to let him do that?
There really wasn't a committee. He said, hey, I'm going to paint this wall. We said, okay. Kind of lax on things here, which is good. I like the way we do it. It's sort of like, you know.
Well, and at least in our area, Sam has quite a very positive reputation as a mural artist. So it'd be kind of like having, you know, Rembrandt come in and say, yeah, I think or Michelangelo say, I think I'd like to paint your ceiling. Yeah, go, have at it.
Go ahead. Yes, there was no disagreement. It's not like there were competing people wanting to do murals or anything.
Right.
The nice
Masonic ones in particular.
Right. The thing is, now I don't know how you all there, Brian, John, do you all have like lodge temples where you have multiple lodges meeting in the same building?
Yeah.
Or Scottish Rite or whatever. Well, yeah. We have one at Granby Street that I've mentioned before. They have 8 lodges. Currently, one Royal Arch chapter that's trying to move. Scottish Rite just moved out. Commandery, that is probably going to move out. And then Eastern Star, Royal Amaranth. Used to have some youth groups. So we all meet in that building. And because it's owned by the corporation as a whole, you really, for the longest time, you couldn't put anything on the walls. They're very strict about it. And it didn't make sense. It's like 2 lodges meeting 1 lodge room. There's no reason one couldn't put up their past masters on one wall and the other lodge on the other. And everyone would have been fine with it. But the temple just said, no, we're not allowing anyone to put up any decorations in the lodge rooms. It's kind of crazy. But Ocean View owns their own building, so we don't have to answer to anybody. So it's a much better situation. We can just do what we want.
In my lodge, there's about 7 or 8 different lodges and dozens so many side orders, and they've all got their boards on the wall. And then if they can't get them in the lodge, and they actually go down the stairs and in the toilets and well, not quite, but you know, anywhere you can stick them.
Right. I don't understand that. It's like what we would rather have this the puke green cinder block that actually have pictures hanging on the walls. It just it makes no sense. I mean, I can understand having some kind of regulation that, you know, the lodge must vote to put something on the wall, or it can only be pictures of past masters and they must be in frames. I mean, I can see not letting anybody just put anything they want on the wall, but have some kind of rule, but still let them do something. It's kind of weird. I don't know. But Granby's a whole interesting thing. It's an older building. It's a little bit older than I am, and it's falling apart much more than I am. And we've already had several. We've had one lodge move out, another one vote, and then decided not to move out. We've had the Scottish Rite just moved out, which is the largest group that met there. And they're having trouble maintaining the dues. You know, they have to assess the lodges to keep the building going. And then people are resistant to renting out the temple to outsiders. But that's the only way we're making any money now is to rent. And people complain that we're renting it out. It's like, well, we can double your assessment, or we can rent out the building for weddings and whatnot.
Again, I guess in a perverse sort of way, we're kind of lucky because of the last year, because of COVID, the government's given us £10,000 to sort of keep the lodge going.
Oh, really?
So we've been redecorating and putting in stair lifts and all sorts of stuff.
Huh. All right. That's one thing here. We're strictly hands off from the government. We're not like registered. I don't think Masonic lodges have to be registered.
No, we're not registered. They gave it to everyone.
Just everyone. Okay.
Not just lodges, churches, clubs.
Oh, wow.
Any companies, anyone. Just everyone got sort of 10 grand.
That's interesting.
Well, I can confirm that expats did not get that, because my daughter currently lives in East London, and yeah, she didn't see £10,000. Would have been nice.
When you said expats, oh yes,
she's a Yank.
No, it's organisations, not people. People were getting up to 80% of their wages paid for them by the government, but again, expats. Sorry, expats isn't quite the word, really, is it?
Well, an expat from here. An expat to us.
Yeah, an immigrant to us. Right. Immigrants come over here stealing our jobs. Oh, what? Man. We have to build a wall or something, I think.
That's right. I thought Maggie was building a wall. All right. Well, as usual, I have no idea how many people are going to show. So this is the point where I say, well, we might have 10 people. We might have 20. So it is what it is, Wes. So, but it will be on YouTube and more people will see it.
Lovely.
So we kind of, you know how it is. You've been to these. It's like you kick it off and a bunch of people flood in at the beginning, and then we just kind of wait for a few minutes to make sure stragglers come in, because I don't want you to start your talk and then have somebody come in and.
Yeah, well, and again, there'll be those 2 or 3 that, you know, they'll come in, they'll go out, they'll come in, they'll go out, you know, because the audio doesn't connect, or they're having an argument with their dog, and so been living that dream.
We've been mostly lucky here with the audio connection. It seems like most people are able to connect without difficulties. Mostly, there's always one or two, but on general, most people get to get in. So I saw a meme the other day. Somebody said that Zoom meetings are like seances. I sense a new presence. Can you hear us? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me do the official stuff here. Get my notes. Boom. Notes there. This is Virginia Research Lodge's weekly unstated meeting. I'm going to put some stuff here in the chat for y'all, but most everybody here has been here before. We do have a Facebook group, and then we have our website and our address, our URL for YouTube that has all of the previous unstated meetings are posted there, generally within a week of the meeting, and then my email address if you want to reach me. And I do have to make an announcement on behalf of the Grand Lodge. This pretty much only applies to Virginia Masons, but and I posted it in the group page, but I'll go ahead and mention it. We have a Grand Lodge policy, the social media policy of the Grand Lodge. Basically, don't be a jerk in social media. But if you want to read, that's horrible. Let me try this again. Okay. I thought I had a clean copy. Let's see. There. If anybody wants to go read the official Grand Lodge policy on social media, there it is. There, I've done my part. But basically, yeah, don't be a jerk online. So I was told that I need to put that on our, mention it in the videos and post it on our Facebook page and all that. So we've done that. So I don't know how many Grand Lodges have social media policies. A lot of them do. Well, they all kind of say the same thing. It's like, don't be a tremendous jerk when you're online. We're representing Masonry. So there it is. And I don't think I don't think we've had an issue here of people being jerks. Brian, do you think? I think we're all reasonable people here. We all seem to get along fine here. For those of you who missed the meeting the last 2 weeks, we had Virginia Research Lodge actually met in person, so naturally we didn't have a meeting. And then last week I had a DMLA function to go to. Kat, who, and I forgot to mention online that, oh yeah, we're not going to be able to have a Zoom meeting because I'm the host. So if I'm not here, we don't have one, which is unfortunate. I am the single point of failure, which is a common industry moniker over here. And next week, I'll be going to Luray Caverns with the DMLA. Luray Caverns is a natural caverns that someone discovered in Western Virginia and about 100 or so years ago. And someone put in, it was property they owned or whatever, but they put in railings and lighting and such so people could go in. I guess at some point you could only get into certain parts if you had equipment and whatever, but they managed to map out caverns that people can actually walk. I imagine they widen them a bit and put in safety rails, whatever. But there's a nice mile or so long walk, maybe it's 2 miles, down to the bottom of the caverns. And they set it all up, and the DMLA will go in there and confer the DMLA degree in the main cavern down in the depths of the cavern. So it's really cool. So every year, the DMLA have gone there and had their DMLA degree, and it's a big quarterly event, and we're looking forward to that. And our chapter is going to be doing the DMLA degree again, so it's going to be exciting. So I'll be driving 5 hours to Luray, and then at midnight or so, I'll be driving 5 hours back. So that should be a fun day for me. So we will not have a meeting next week, but we will 2 weeks from now. I'll announce those at the end here. So anyone, a day, Brother Elias, you guys got anything you want to offer before we go to our speaker? Give you all a chance to say hello. Tell us something interesting going on with you. Or just wave and stay on mute. Okay. All righty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Brother Wes Latchford, and he is a member of Ocean View Lodge, and another one that doesn't matter because he's affiliated with us, and he's a member of Norfolk Scottish Rite. He is not yet Worshipful Master, which makes him a bit of a rarity because everyone seems to be a past master.
No, I'm Worshipful Master of Atlantic Lodge number 2.
Are you Worshipful Master? I am sorry. Yes.
And because I can't get enough, I'm Senior Warden of Lynnhaven Lodge. So I'll get to do it all again next year.
I didn't know that.
But I'll be my own past master. So I've told everybody I can correct myself. I don't need your help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You bring your past master with you to keep you straight. So go ahead, Wes, you have the floor.
Okay, great. Hey, thanks everybody for having me this morning. This I'm hoping will be interesting and fun. Particularly as we were having the conversation earlier, this could very well be something that is fairly peculiar and unique to American Freemasonry, as part of the second section of the Master Mason's degree. And as Chris was talking about earlier, there's a portion in the conferral of the degree where we act out basically the funeral party heading from the temple to the graveside of Hiram Abiff. And as part of that, there is a funeral dirge that we sing, or well, we try to sing. Most of the time it's just incomprehensible mumbling. And the history of that particular tune and the lyrics that come with it is very, very intriguing, even if it's not something that your own personal ritualistic style embraces. And so with that, let me go ahead and make sure that we can get everything working this morning. And I will share and bring up today's topic, which is cat. Really? All right, hold on. I got to get rid of my fur ball. So Solemn strikes the. He never gets up on the desk until like this morning. So, but the title of the tune that we sing is entitled "Solemn Strikes the Funeral Chime," and there's an interesting tie between two different brothers that contributed, sometime unbeknownst to one to the other, to this funeral dirge that we perform as part of our American ritual. And so with that, I will dive right in. And so Brother Ignaz Joseph Pleyel was born in June 18th, 1757 in Rupertstahl, Austria. Brother Pleyel was an Austro-French composer, a music publisher, and a piano builder. He trained in music while still very young and was sent in 1772 to Eichstätt to become a pupil and a lodger of Brother Franz Joseph Haydn, who was reportedly brought into Freemasonry by his friend Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in Vienna in February of 1785. So immediately, Pleyel is at a young age becoming exposed to Freemasonry. Pleyel moved to Strasbourg, France in 1783, a period which was his most musically productive. Many of his works were very widely known in Europe and North America. In 1785, he was admitted to the Masonic Lodge in Ficht near Oberau, Austria. He left Strasbourg in 1791 for London, where his concerts were also well attended, and his compositions, especially symphonies and quartets, which were very, very popular at the time because they could be performed in relatively small venues rather than large concert halls, got great praise from the critics. He was a very, very popular composer of his day. However, from the onset of the Reign of Terror in 1793, it certainly made life in France kind of dangerous for many, not excluding Pleyel, who, interestingly enough, was still living abroad in England, but was feeling some of the ramifications of the French Revolution, even while in London. So he was actually brought before the Committee on Public Safety a total of 7 times. Most of it due to his foreign status, because again, he was Austrian, even though he was spending most of his time in France and some in England. His recent purchase of a chateau, which kind of tied him to being a part of the higher aristocracy, which certainly was not popular during the Terror, and then also ties to the Strasbourg Cathedral, and his patronage of Europe's aristocracy ended up with him oftentimes being labeled as a royalist collaborator. The outcome of the committee's attentions could easily have been imprisonment or even execution. However, Brother Pleyel, with prudent optimism, was able to preserve his life and the future of his career as a composer by writing compositions in honor of the new republic, including an 8-hour-long ode to the revolution. Actually, it's titled The Revolution of August 10th, 1792, or the Allegorical Alarm. So if you're being threatened by the government, just write a great big long symphony that sings their platitudes, and life is good. So early in 1795, once things settled down, he finally moved to Paris, where he opened a music shop and founded a publishing house. It issued about 4,000 different works over the 39 years that it existed, including many works and publications by Luigi Boccherini, some guy named Ludwig van Beethoven, Muzio Clemente, Jan Ladislav, Dussek, and even Haydn himself. The piano manufacturing company that Pleyel founded in Paris in 1807 also prospered, mostly under the guidance of his eldest son, Camille. Camille was a close friend of Frédéric Chopin, who made his Paris debut and gave his final Paris concert in the Soleil Pleyel, which was their own personal family concert house. And Chopin himself owned a Pleyel grand piano, and that's actually what's pictured there on the slide. That's Chopin's grand piano, which went missing for many, many years. And interestingly enough, it's actually in Surrey, UK, not anywhere in France or even at Chopin's home. So Brother Pleyel laid down his working tools and passed to the Celestial Lodge in Paris on November 14th, 1831. So the big thing to take away is, one, he was a brother. He was a prolific artisan. He composed 41 different symphonies, 70 string quartets, plus several string quintets and numerous operas. He also wrote music for Masonic rituals, yet one composition that he is most recognized for within the craft is one entitled Children of the Heavenly King, or simply Pleyel's Hymn, from his 4th quartet, Opus 7, which was published in 1791. Interestingly enough, it was not one of his Masonic compositions, but it's one that has become an integral part of American ritual, courtesy of another brother. Brother David Vinton was American silversmith, merchant, and a Masonic lecturer. Born in either Medford or Medfield, Massachusetts. Again, colonial records can be sketchy. Somewhere around January 6, 1774. He was orphaned at age 4, and his uncle, silversmith William Gowan, was appointed his guardian. He was apprenticed at age 13 to David Tyler in Boston, and at some point moved to Providence, Rhode Island, where on December 22nd, 1792, and January 24th, 1793, in the Providence Gazette, he advertised himself as a goldsmith and jeweler. By 1796, he had become a general merchant, continuing to sell spoons, bracelets, along with bonnets, wigs, butter, cheese, sheet music, and other miscellaneous instruments. It's actually interesting, and I was surprised to find this because before I started this research, I knew of Vinton for what I'll talk about here in a little bit, but I did not know that he was a silversmith and actually a colleague of Brother Paul Revere. And so on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see two different beakers that were produced by, on the left, Brother Vinton, and the one on the right was produced by Brother Paul Revere. Both of those are in the Fowler Museum out at UCLA, and the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art also has several of the spoons that Brother Vinton created while he was working as a silversmith. Brother Vinton was prominent in Freemasonry as a member of Providence's Mount Vernon Lodge, number 4, and in 1816 he compiled and published a volume called the Masonic Minstrel, of which the full title was The Masonic Minstrel, a selection of Masonic, sentimental, and amorous songs, duets, glees, canons, rounds, and canzonets, respectfully dedicated to the most ancient and honorable fraternity of free and accepted Masons. With an appendix containing a short historical sketch of Masonry and a list of all the lodges in the United States. It was printed by H. Mann & Company, sold for about $2.50, and more than 12,000 copies were sold. The frontispiece from that particular work is what you see there on the right-hand side, and that image is courtesy of the Scottish Rite Masonic Museum and Library at the House of the Temple up in Washington, D.C. So again, Brother Vinton, much like a lot of other individuals and brothers in this time period, kind of a Renaissance man, lots of different skills and talents and things by which he could ply his trade. And he fell into the music publishing business and was a very prolific compiler of Masonic music. So in the last years of his life, Brother Vinton became an itinerant teacher and lecturer of Masonic rituals, in particular the York Rite degrees, having the most success in North and South Carolina. At the time in Masonic history, a number of men made their living as Masonic lecturers, granting degrees and founding consistories, chapters, councils, or whatever, including a couple famous names, Jeremy Ladd Cross and Thomas Webb, who, interestingly enough, also lived in and were from Providence, Rhode Island, along with many other folks who are also on basically the professional lecturing circuit. There was a certain amount of competition between these lecturers, and potentially by ranging so far afield, Brother Vinton may have encroached on the territories that others felt were their own, leading to what transpired next. In 1821, Vinton was summoned by the Grand Chapter of Virginia to be examined on charges preferred against him by Franklin Lodge No. 4 of Royal Arch Masons in Connecticut, to which Vinton belonged. The charges were for highly improper and unmasonic conduct. The charges against Brother Vinton were conferring the mark and past master's degree without any authority to do so and pocketing the fees. Vinton did not respond to the summons, so he lost his privileges as a Mason in that Grand Chapter and, according to their summons, throughout the world. He was also expelled from the Grand Lodge of North Carolina on the charge of selling manuscripts of the Masonic lectures. Lodge number 15 in Washington, Georgia, published a manifesto, however, in Vinton's defense, where they contended, quote, "The unmasonic conduct of Brother Vinton alludes to his liberal sentiments and to the method of his communicating the lectures to the officers of lodges and chapters, which does not infringe on the principles of Masonry in the least. They have been approved by upwards of 200 lodges and chapters in the United States, and by some of the brightest luminaries in the galaxy of Masonry. documents we have seen proving this method of highest importance to the craft, and if properly analyzed, it will be acknowledged by every enlightened Mason to be useful to the craft. This is all that we can explain to the world. The highly improper and unmasonic conduct in which Vinton partook was that of conferring the chapter degrees without authority. But this was not without precedence for the period, as numerous individuals were itinerating from state to state, peddling so-called council degrees, including Cross and Webb. For this, he should undoubtedly have been disciplined, but by the Royal Arch chapters alone. It was, however, no high crime against Freemasonry itself, warranting global expulsion from the craft. It also turns out that Vinton's notes were far less extensive than is normally found in monitors and ciphers of even the present day. In fact, according to Thomas Hayward, Grand Master of Florida in 1858, who personally reviewed Vinton's printed work, had said it would not even raise an eyebrow compared to what Albert Pike or Albert Mackey had published during the same time periods. Regrettably, in 1826 came the Morgan Affair in the United States, which sparked a wave of anti-Masonic feeling across the nation, and along with the actions taken against him by various grand jurisdictions, probably put a damper on Vinton's further efforts as a lecturer and doomed his career in Freemasonry. His last days were spent without the honor or privilege of Masonic charity. Brother David Vinton died in Shakertown, Kentucky in July 1833 while visiting on Masonic business. While on his deathbed, the Freemasons of Lodge number 73 at Bowling Green, Kentucky, wrote to the Grand Lodge of Kentucky, inquiring whether David Vinton was a Mason in good standing. The reply was in the negative. The kind brethren of Kentucky, who said they were willing to give him funeral honors if his character were cleared up, could find no one to offer any official declaration of forgiveness. They could do nothing for him or his memory. So it's a sad irony that the fact that the man who wrote the words of what we sing as our funeral dirge, Solemn strikes the funeral chime, to the melody of Pleyel's hymn, was in fact himself buried without Masonic honors. And so the sweet poet and Masonic songster of the period died under a cloud, and there is no emblem of the craft on his tombstone. Brother David Vinton lives on today only because of his lyric contribution to Masonic ritual, which is almost universally employed throughout the United States in the workings of the third degree. His simple poetic dirge has earned him the respect of every brother who has marched the March of Solomon or prayed the soliloquy over a fallen brother. So perhaps it can be truthfully said that David Vinton, among all men, indeed journeyed here below through a pilgrimage of woe. Brother Robert Morris, in writing about the circumstances of Vinton's life in the Masonic Journal, volume 53, 1880, eloquently said, "And so sweet a poet and Masonic songster of the period died under a cloud." To close my talk, I'd like to play for you off of Edison Blue Amberol cylinder record number 1953, which was originally recorded in November 1909 for the Edison Wax Company. And actually, this is out of a volume 4M-333. The vocalists on this track are actually unknown. And for the US folks joining us here, you know how we typically do it when we're performing ritual. Have a listen to this recording and see how different it was in 1909. And this is where I found most of what I've mentioned today. And with that, I thank you for taking a little bit of time and letting me give you some background and history on brothers Pleyel and Vinton, who have collectively given us one of the key elements of American Masonic ritual in the second section of the master's degree. And so with that,
Les,
I'll open it
before
up to anything anybody has. Yeah.
Thank you, Les. Before you close out your screen, can you back
Yeah.
up to the Edison? Yeah. What is that little jar there? I was trying to figure that out.
That little jar is actually, if you look on the right-hand side of the bell, you'll actually see the wax cylinder.
Yep.
And so that little jar is what the wax cylinder goes in when you're not actually
Oh,
playing
that's the little storage case. Okay.
Yeah, so they're literally, you would have, actually they had specially designed cabinets where those things would all pop in there.
Okay.
And they were like no kidding wax. So
Right.
you had to be fairly wealthy to own that, because it needed, at least in the late 19th, early 20th century, certainly needed a good bit of climate control that you wouldn't have in a lower income household. But yeah, because I've seen some of those where they get trashed pretty quick.
Right. Yeah, just melts. Here, let me play this for you.
Like my old Led Zeppelin albums.
Right. Do we know how Vinton was able? He just picked Pleyel's hymn to use as his music. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, I think so. Again, remembering that Pleyel, in that early to middle part of the 19th century, was a fairly prolific composer and pretty well known, again, not just in Europe, but also in the United States. The fact that he would have taken that particular tune and put words to it is not surprising. It's actually also, it was included in most of the hymn books of the period too. So it was, in the Anglican or Episcopal book of worship. It was in the Methodist. It was certainly included in the Wesley's Methodist hymn books. And so it's a fairly recognizable tune for the period.
Right. I've noticed, like in looking through the hymn book at church, they do have a number of hymns, because I like to read the little notes, and it says, words by so-and-so, music composed by so-and-so. And I noticed that a lot of tunes for hymns get recycled. So if you're familiar enough with music and you flip through, you can see the same music gets used by more than one hymn.
Oh yeah. And actually, there's an interesting side story when you start talking about Masonic music and composers of particular periods. You'll find a lot of, or not a lot, but you'll find certain pieces of Masonic music, within lodges and under the Grand Lodge of Scotland, and Ugle, and I know the Grand Lodge of Ireland has some, and some of the music that would still kind of have here in the United States. But a lot of the words are put against music written by Beethoven. And there's actually an interesting story where, again, he knew this was happening, but when that happens, he wasn't necessarily getting money for it. And
right.
So there's actually a kind of a side story where Beethoven basically said, look, if you want music for your lodges, I'll write it for you, but stop taking my works and adding Masonic lyrics to it.
Oh, that's funny. Well, so Pleyel then wrote Masonic word songs as well.
Yes.
Okay.
He has several collections that he specifically wrote to accompany ritual or to be part of the lodge. And I think it's disappointing is probably not the right word, but it's certainly
lacking
with our lodges today.
Agreed.
To find a lodge that has a musician is probably very few and far between, and even trying to find a lodge that will take and leverage technology to try and incorporate music into not only just the regular conduct of meetings, but also into our ritual work. Is not as prevalent as perhaps it could be to again, because music has always been a part of Masonry. I mean, it's one of the several liberal arts and sciences, right? And so we're kind of admonished to make us make the study of it, but it seems to be it's one of the liberal arts and sciences that is waning in interest in our capacity to be able to appreciate and understand it.
Right. I want to ask about our British brothers here. Do you all use music at all in your lodge meetings, or you're muted, Brian?
Yes, we do. We
Okay.
have an opening ode and a closing ode and a national anthem. And
Okay.
it's festive board. There are songs in our lodge, at least, because we're a singing lodge. We sing toast snap during the festive board.
Okay. But in a regular meeting, though, do you?
Only the opening and closing odes and national anthem.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and knowing that our national anthem was originally a drinking song, that might actually fit for us. So
I have no problem with that.
It's definitely a dirge.
That is something I feel we're lacking. Wes, I don't know if you were here. I don't think you were present for we had the Traditional Observance Lodge discussion a month or so ago. I had several brothers from different lodges in other states, and at least one brother here from Virginia. I think Joe Martinez was on the call. And
that's unfortunate.
Wow. Now.
I know Joe very well.
Right. We'll see you later, John. I think John's already left. But it was really neat because we had all these brothers who I wanted to find brothers who actually had participated in or are currently members of an observant lodge or whatever name they called it by. None of them called it TO. Some called it observant, some called it other things. But they were all trying to pursue that, and they stress music as one of the things that you introduce in the lodges. You need to have music. You need to have candles. You need to have better lighting, incense, a lot of things. So I was like, I would love to see that more introduced. We actually have in Virginia, you're allowed to have a musician or organist as one of your official officers, and they would then play the piano, presumably, or the organ. And the Eastern Star manages to have one for their chapters, but very few lodges appoint a organist. We had one in Ocean View who was our lodge musician, and he played the violin. Didn't play the piano, didn't like the piano, couldn't play it. Played the violin. Didn't work out. Brother Vincent Ognabine, I remember him because I installed him. And I had to learn that part for organists, because you don't learn it when you learn the other ones. And it just didn't work out because it's just a violin doesn't quite work. Piano sort of generic enough. You could use a piano and play most music and it will suffice, unless you have something recorded, what have you. But
yeah, that was one of the things that struck me the first time that I visited Lynnhaven Lodge, where I'm senior warden right now. Was at that time they did have a musician, and he played the piano, and so there was kind of the prelude music like you would figure at church, right, as everybody's coming into lodge and getting all settled to go ahead and open. And then he would have other pieces of music that he would play as certain things were being acted out. So when the master directs the deacon to close the doors, the deacon gets up and there's music for him, basically his soundtrack. No, it's not Boots Randolph's Yakety Sack, but that, although some of the meetings that I actually have calliope music, circus calliope music on my phone for those times when it seems like it's just a circus and not really a Masonic lodge. But yeah, but that was the first lodge that I had been at where there had actually been, a musician who was playing. And but it's also interesting. I think you can go through a lot of lodges, particularly if they've been around for a while, where you'll find an old, very out of tune, probably with a snapped, stringboard piano,
Yes,
or a collection of old Hurlitzer, organs, that you could put the bossa nova drum beat on and and do whatever you wanted. But yeah, so they're all, and nobody wants them at a yard sale, so you can't get rid of them either. So they they cover it with a piece of cloth and turn it into the altar, I guess. But,
I do believe the Jobies do use music, and the Rainbow, I think, have, and the Eastern Star does, but for most part, the Blue Lodges and the appendant bodies don't. Now, Wes will know, because he's a member of the team with me. We have the KCCH investiture coming up in the Scottish Rite that we're performing yet again in September. And it's funny, the way we do things here, we have 8 valleys in Virginia, and we rotate. Each one will host our annual conference in their city. And then another one is responsible for either conferring the KCCH, if it's that year, or doing one of the other degrees and performing it. And we've done it now. This will be the 4th time, 8 years going, that Norfolk Valley has been asked to do the degree. We did it once, and then we keep getting called back to do it because the other valley doesn't want to do it. We did such a good job. So we get back and rehearse every other year. But we actually have a good brother from Newport News Valley who was our organist last time, and he agreed to do it again this time. And he did a wonderful job. He went in and found the right accompaniment for the degree. And it definitely, you can, it adds something to the ceremony to have the music. So I can appreciate that. I think the lodges should look to find a way to do that.
And
is inclined.
Yeah, and it is funny you mentioned that, Chris, because it is out there. Again, we've had all of these composers, from famous ones like Pleyel and Mozart, who have written, Masonic pieces. As a matter of fact, Mozart wrote an Entered Apprentice song in honor of his dad, who, Mozart was already a Master Mason, but his dad was being initiated, and so he wrote a piece, for his father.
Right.
But so there are plenty of books, that have, I mean, there's a particular song, and I'm looking to see if I can grab it off my bookshelf. I need to move my bookshelf closer to my desk. But there are particular songs, at least I know for American ritual, for within each one of the degrees. There is an Entered Apprentice's song, and there's a, and there's a Fellow Crafts, and there's actually a, hey, look, it's the Worshipful Master, song. And so those all exist. Yeah, kinda, but not nearly as impressive. But so it's just interesting that that music exists out there, and there's also a lot of other more modern writers, some current day musicians who have written pieces of composed music to be utilized in various aspects of our ritual, and I think we do ourselves a disservice by not thinking about the fact that it doesn't necessarily, and this is just me. This is, not the policies of any Grand Lodge or any jurisdiction. There's that caveat too, to, they want you to throw into things. But, we certainly could leverage our technology a little better.
Absolutely.
To be able to, again, in a modern way, bring back what is an ancient tradition, and so much so that at the Scottish Rite workshop in Charlotte in 2020, literally the first weekend in April, we were all there. It was the kind of the East Coast collection of Scottish Rite Masons, pretty much from Florida up to New York, or at least to where the southern jurisdiction ends. And yeah, well, and every morning when we got up, we were waiting to get thrown out of the hotel, because the North Carolina governor was locking things down. So can we stay? Can we stay?
Right.
But the point of this whole dirge is that there was actually an educational session and workshop where one of the brothers, who is a professional music guy, a studio operator, talked about easy, simple, soft, app that you can download on your phone different types of music. And so you can literally get it synced up to the second for your degree work. Now he was specifically talking about, Scottish Rite degrees, but there's no reason why, we couldn't match some of that up with what we do in the Blue Lodge either. Again, just to add one more element, of being able to better understand, the allegorical stories and symbols that make up our craft.
I want to make sure I gave the other brothers here a chance to ask questions. If any of you have any questions or comments you want to make about our presentation. Don't all stand up at once. Okay, they're all very happy with what I'm doing. All right, very good. I do tend to monopolize with, I'll fill the dead space. I think I could do, I have a face for radio, so I think I could do a good job. If I had to be a radio announcer, I could, because I'm good at filling the dead air. I just want to make sure I gave you all a chance to chime in if you have any comments. If not, I want to thank Brother Wes for his talk. I really enjoyed it. It's just yet another another home run here. I think this is great. We have a lot of great talks here, and I wish more brothers had the opportunity to see them, especially in my neck of the woods. I did have Brother Michael Joyner, who was at our last Zoom, who's a member of Richmond Randolph. Some of y'all remember him. He's the one his bedroom is Masonic. I joked because he has bedposts, and he sits in his bedroom for the Zoom meeting. And I joked that he's such a devoted Mason. He's even got the deacons' staffs in his bedroom, because they look like the staffs behind him. But he was initiated, or he was affiliated with Virginia Research Lodge at our last meeting, as was Bill Peterson, who's a regular attendee here. So I managed to be the first line signer for 2 DEOs joining my research lodge. And if Wes had been there, it would have been 3 DEOs I brought in. So that would have been something I could brag about. But it's great. I mean, we'll get you another time, Wes. But Michael stood up and echoed what I said, because I always stand up at the research lodge and say, hey, come to our Zoom meetings, But he echoed that. He said there's been some really good, interesting talks that we've managed to have, and we've gotten some really good speakers. So I'm proud of the fact we get yet another good speaker here that hopefully someone will go on YouTube and enjoy all of them, because I think we're putting out some good Masonic content. So I'm really proud of the work we're doing here, and glad you could be another chapter here, Wes. This was really good.
Yeah, no, thanks for cutting me in. And like I said, yeah, I got 1,000 of them. So whenever you need to fill dead space, let me know.
I may well bring you back. I do want to give an announcement for upcoming ones. Gordon Mitchie, who I had to bump, and Brother D.D. Anderson, who I had to bump. So I will try to make sure I announce in plenty of advance warning if I have to reschedule, because I do have DMLA commitments coming up on Saturdays where I have to drive and what all. So I do apologize for the last notice. The last week we had to cancel, but our brothers are very good about rescheduling with me. So next week we will not have a Zoom meeting on the 5th. On June the 12th, we will have Worshipful Gordon Mitchie will speak on Freemasonry and the Victoria Cross, and that should be quite interesting. And then on the 19th of June, we'll have Brother D.D. Anderson, who will lead a discussion about the Scottish Rite Supreme Council in the state of Louisiana. And we will have a panel discussion. I will have several brothers here. That should be quite interesting. There is a Supreme Council in Louisiana, and they confer the Scottish Rite degrees from the entered apprentice on up. They are not part of the Grand Lodge of Louisiana. They are clandestine to the Supreme Council of the Southern Jurisdiction, of which both Wes and I are members, and Jody might be too, I don't know. But it's interesting. The Supreme Council of Louisiana confers all of the degrees. They are not an appendant body, and they have a very interesting story, and we'll be interviewing them, talking about Louisiana Masonry Supreme Council style. So that should be a lot of fun. I've always been curious about that. And I always want to have brothers from other countries come in, and we talk about how Masonry is in their country and how their Grand Lodge does things differently. Well, here it's an American grand body, but they are indeed quite different from what most of us think of as what a Grand Lodge does. And I'll be interested to talk about the similarities and differences with them. So that should be a lot of fun. That's on the 19th. So if you're not a member of our Facebook group, please join us. And if you're not signed up for the papers, please contact me. I'll be happy to sign you up for our weekly papers. We're still cranking that out. I just sent out number 106 this week. And I'm on the last book. I'm on the last transactions, which is right here, which you won't see. Oh, yeah, let me do this so you can see. Turn that off so you can actually see it. This here is our transactions. This is 94. We had about 20 years worth of transactions where we published the papers of Virginia Research Lodge. This is the last book, which means when I finish scanning this, I have to go to Grand Lodge, dig out our minutes from the 1950s and scan the papers that were presented in the Lodge. So they've been buried for a long time. No one's read them since they're originally read. So this should be a lot of fun, which means it's going to be harder. So I will do my best to get enough of them in advance so I can keep doing this every week. But anyway, if any brother has anything to say, Brother Max is joining us late, but it's good to have you here, brother, just as we're getting ready to sign off. But we'll go ahead and let you say hello since you did make the effort to join us. I also want to say hi to Brother Clayton. You came in late. Nice to see you, my brother. Hello, Brother Max. You want to say hello right before we sign off? You need to unmute.
Brother Chris.
Yes, Brother Clayton. Hey there.
I was a little bit late, but even though I wasn't showing my face, I was listening very closely as I was getting ready to go to and attend the funeral services for a brother.
I understand.
And so I had to finish that up before I could sit down and really be present in person.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
we do appreciate you.
very interesting today. I really enjoyed the lecture.
Yeah, well, it was very interesting. I liked it very much as well. It was kind of neat to see how he brought all of them together and told a very interesting story. I like that. Brother Max, you want to say hello before we sign off?
I need to offer my apologies once again. I've been out. I've only just got back in.
Okay.
So I'm afraid it's my loss this afternoon. I do apologize. And
This will be on YouTube. If you want to grab it from the chat before we close, I will post this on YouTube shortly.
thank you very much.
And yeah, as always, these are always going out on YouTube within a week or so. I try to do them by Monday or Tuesday after. But I appreciate everyone making the effort to come out. It's a small crowd today. I don't know. I'd love to increase the participation, but you know, if there's 5 or 6 or 10 of you who come out, as long as you're willing to come out and listen and I have a good speaker, I'll be happy to host these things and put them on YouTube, hopefully reach more people. But if you want to invite anybody to come join us, I would love to see more brothers on here. I really would love to get more Virginia brothers coming out here. I don't know what it is, but I can't seem to attract members of my lodge or my research lodge to attend regularly. Not
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah. Hey, so before we wrap up, while you were talking about YouTube, I just thought of something and I wanted to toss it out there. So for those who may not be aware, the Masonic Services Association of North America, for almost 100 years now, has been publishing monthly short talk bulletins.
yes.
And every lodge in the United States and Canada gets a copy of it, as do the educational officers and various other folks. There's an initiative right now where and I say we, I'm one of several folks who are working to take those short talk bulletins, again almost 100 years worth, and record them. And so they are now, I think we have about 200 of them done right now, but they are available as a podcast. So if you just go to Short Talk Bulletin, just search Short Talk Bulletin podcast, it will come up. But again, if you're looking, if you don't want to talk but want to be able to have something either for your lodge or just for yourself, again, there's the brother in Maine is the actual producer, but there's a group of us from across the country who he will send us whatever copy he wants us to record, and so we'll take and read through it as best we can. And then send it back to him, and they get posted. But again, it's there's several things that I listen to and from work, but that happens to be one of them, where again, they're short talks, maybe 10, 15 minutes at most. So it's perfect for a short commute or if you just want to take some time during the day. But it's Short Talk Bulletin Podcast.
Interesting. I'd like to get involved in that if they need volunteers for.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll send you the link.
Cool. If you were interested in that. I don't even know that they're that long. I mean, a lot of the ones I've seen are like 4 pages. It's a folded pamphlet.
Yeah, some of them, well, it's funny because you look at some and they're using, 16 pitch, and then there are other ones where, a really good set of reading glasses still doesn't help you, be able to read what's there. But yeah, so
I remember I received the short talk bulletins, I think when I was worshipful master, maybe when I was warden, and then junior, senior warden, then master. I received them, and then I stopped getting them. They were sending them to the station officers, and then they stopped. So for some reason, I got dropped off the mailing list, and I don't know what their priorities are for sending. Maybe they don't send them to individual members anymore, and just to the lodges.
Yeah, cost prohibition has made it to where not everybody ends up getting it. So, but yeah, so just to take and pirate things, that just so everybody sees. But this is where you can go to to get into it.
Shorttalkbulletin.com right there.
Yep,
that's easy to remember.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
And like I said, and Mike usually tries to put get a new one
scroll back.
online.
Scroll to the picture. Let people see that.
Oh.
The picture you had there, right there. That's what they look like. Yep. And usually they were like 4-fold, or they sometimes they staple and they had 8 pages, but usually it's just that. It's not that long a little pamphlet, but it is a good short read. Yeah, I would argue I don't think they're ever more than 10 minutes, the length of them, but they are good little Masonic talks.
Yeah, and like I said, and there's a group of us trying to record them for posterity. So
that's great. We need to capture.
Yep. So there you go.
Appreciate
there you go.
See, you learn a lot coming here.
Not only research, but education.
That's right. So I appreciate everyone coming out. Once again, this is our unstated meeting for Virginia Research Lodge. Appreciate everyone making the time on a Saturday. And good afternoon to my brothers across the pond. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. See everybody soon.
Bye to you.
Goodbye.